Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Claudia Monacelli with another episode of my podcast, Multiple Voices. Today, I have a guest with us, Lion Goodman. Lion, say hello to our audience.
Hello, audience. It's great to be here with you, Claudia.
Thanks. It's wonderful to have you. He's talking to us from California today. And there's a lot to say about Lion, but let me see if I can get, I'll summarize it. And then we'll start asking him. So Lion Goodman is what he calls a transformational coach, an author, a healer, and a teacher. At the age of 26, Lion was shot in the head 4 times. And right there is, you think, boy, anybody to be able to survive that really has a story to tell. This near-death experience kickstarted his 5 decades of research into the nature of consciousness. This is something we all want to hear about. Developmental psychology, spirituality, and healing. He created the Clear Beliefs method of trauma-informed therapeutic coaching, which he has taught to more than 500 coaches, healers, therapists around the world. His training is accredited by both the International Coaching Federation and Association for Coaching. In a single session, Lion can eliminate a client's limiting or negative belief from their subconscious mind, can heal a childhood wound, or resolve a trauma from the past. This Clear Beliefs method is a multidimensional approach to rapid and deep healing. Very interesting. Lion has taught workshops and trainings around the world and authored 5 books, including the book entitled Creating on Purpose, Clear Your Clients' Limiting Beliefs, and Menlightenment. And he co-authored a new book, Transforming Trauma, with Joe Vitale, Marci Shimoff, John DeMartini, Christy Whitman. And I'll just, how to get in touch with you, I'll put in the description of the episode. Lion, now, of course, the first question I think everybody would want to know, how did you survive after being shot in the head 4 times? But maybe that's not the best question. I'll come to that later. I want to know, that was at 26. Who was Lion before then? What kind of, let's say, I'd like to talk about the teenage years. Who was Lion when he was a teen?
I'm not sure you want to get to know that person.
Oh. Well, it's too late anyway. Well, maybe hear about it.
I've been a seeker as long as I can remember. Even in elementary school, I was looking at other people and trying to figure out how they were normal, and I wasn't. So I knew that I was different. I knew that I was odd and weird, and I didn't make friends easily. They all seemed to just live life themselves, but I had this observation. I was always looking at them, trying to figure them out. And my dad handed me a book on reincarnation when I was 12 years old and said, "This might interest you." And I read about a chapter or 2, and then I closed it and went, "Oh yeah, I remember that." And that got me interested in psychic phenomenon, and I practiced telepathy with my girlfriend at 13. So I was an early explorer of these things. And so I think the best description of me would be a seeker. I was a seeker of trying to figure things out, trying to figure myself out. And I ended up spending my lifetime doing that until I finally figured it out.
Okay, so we never really quite figure it out, don't we?
I know,
that's the beauty.
We like to pretend. We at least proclaim that we figured it out.
Now, okay, you sidestepped the question very elegantly, but I'll get back to you. So now we're at 26 years old. What brought you to this harrowing episode in your life, being shot? Where were you? You were obviously in the wrong place at the wrong time, but what happened?
I had graduated from college, University of
Yeah.
Colorado, with a degree in consciousness studies. And it
Okay.
was one of the
Interesting.
first degrees granted in
Yes.
that field.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
way back in 1975.
Yeah. That's you were very lucky. You're
Yeah.
very lucky.
Um, and nobody was hiring people with degrees in consciousness studies.
They still aren't hiring those people.
So in order to make money, I became a salesman on the road. And I was selling jewelry and gift items and traveling the Southwest US, calling on stores and selling jewelry and gift items, crystals and that kind of thing. And so I was on the road as a good Samaritan. And so if somebody's car had broken down, I would stop and help them.
Right.
I was on the road. I was driving this big RV van. And so on my way from Las Vegas to LA, in the middle of the Mojave Desert, there was a guy whose car had broken down. And it was about 110 degrees outside.
Oh,
so I stopped and I said, do you need any help? He said, well, I just put $200 into her and she won't start and I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I'm heading into LA. Would you like a ride?
Right.
And he looked at me kind of funny, went, yeah, okay. And he brought his duffel bags and suitcases and stuff into my van. And we started driving. Well, we ended up driving. He ended up being with me for 3 days. I kind of took him under my wing and I grew to trust him. And I'd send him on errands with the van and, give him clothes to wear that were better than the clothes he had. And so it was like an apprentice. He was kind of like an apprentice. And it's lonely to be traveling on the road. So it was good to have a companion. And the third night out, I was in the back of the van pushing things around, trying to make more room because it was very crowded with all his stuff and my stuff. And he was in the front seat. And suddenly there was an explosion. And I felt something hit me in the head. And I thought maybe the gas stove had exploded. I looked up and it was intact. And I looked to my left. And there he was with a gun in his hand pointing at me from the front seat. So needless to say, it was a bit of a surprise.
I'd say that. Yeah.
And at first I thought he was warning me that he wanted to steal my stuff. And at that point, my first instinct was, it's all yours. Take everything. Leave me naked outside. Bye. No problem.
Yeah.
But then he shot again. And I realized he's not just warning me, he's going to kill me.
Kill me, yeah.
And at that moment, many realizations happened. Like, oh, this is the end of my life. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't defend myself. I was a sitting duck, basically. So how do I want to die? And I had studied enough about death and dying to know that I didn't want to die with anger or upset.
Right.
I wanted to die clean. So I went through my past and asked forgiveness from everybody that I had hurt and forgave everyone that had hurt me.
Right.
And he shot again. The second and third bullets missed me by fractions of an inch. But by this time, I was connecting to source and saying, okay, I'm ready to come home. And I'm out of my body and looking down at this little van and finding it an amusing situation. But I figured, okay, well, this is it. This is why I couldn't see my future, because I'm going to be dead in the future. And so then he shot again, and this time the bullet hit me, sent my head flying to the right, blood coming down, and I was back in my body, which I thought was unusual because I was supposed to be out of my body. And I felt intact. So I picked up my head and I looked at him, and he freaked out. And he said, "Why aren't you dead, man? You're supposed to be dead." And I didn't know the answer to that question. I was in this very spacious love light, glowing like golden honey flowing through me out into him. It's like everything was just one big love fest. And that began an 8-hour conversation
with him,
which lasted through the night and into the morning. And
what about your head?
Well, I didn't know what had happened to my head. I thought if the bullets had gone through, I should be able to notice something missing, but I felt intact. So I really didn't know. There was just lots of blood and eventually it stopped bleeding. When I finally got to the hospital, the doctor said, "Oh, 2 bullets glanced off your skull. You're a lucky man." And I thought, no, I'm a blessed man. It wasn't at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Interesting. So this man is still in your life, still contact with him?
No contact since then, which I appreciate.
Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah, gun laws have changed. It's a lot easier. You don't want to find him, no. Well, interesting. So that does qualify as a near-death experience for sure, for sure. Well, you said that you had a degree in consciousness, and of course, 75, 76, you said, right?
Yeah.
Of course, it's changed like everything over the years. What is that, 30, 50 years ago? No, 40 years ago, 50 years
Feels
ago.
like a long time.
Long time, right?
50 years ago.
So now consciousness, there have been a lot of different things that have come up. According to you, what is the most relevant change in and around consciousness that seems interesting to you today?
Well, first of all, when I was getting a degree in consciousness studies, most people thought of consciousness as an epiphenomenon of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
The brain's
Yes.
active enough and
Right.
consciousness
Right.
happens. Right.
Right.
Today, more and more scientists are saying consciousness is not a product of the brain. The brain might be a transmitter of consciousness, but we really don't know. And what's the same back then to now is that people don't know what the connection is between brain and consciousness. You can't open up the brain and find consciousness anywhere. You can't find thoughts or feelings. So we have experience. We all have experiences. And people talk about changing the brain, but we really can't change our brain. What we can change is our experience and our beliefs that create our experience. So this is what my 50 years of research brought me to, is the understanding that the infrastructure of the mind is beliefs, like the infrastructure of the brain is neurons. And beliefs to me are the basic unit of human consciousness. Because we put together our world starting when we're still in the womb by identifying patterns and then using those patterns to survive. And so later they get words attached to them and we call them beliefs, but it's a pattern system that's been there from the very beginning.
Okay, so then we come up to this first idea that you suggested, or as a topic, using the subconscious mind to change your beliefs and change your life. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. I love talking about this topic. That's my favorite thing to talk about.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay. So this pattern detection system starts when we're very young. A baby coming out of the womb can identify the mother's voice as opposed to another woman's voice, for example. So we know that the patterns are beginning to form in the womb. Once we come out, we're starting to be told who we are and what we are. Oh, your name is Johnny. You're such a cute little boy. You're going to grow up to be a great doctor someday. And the mind is on record mode for the first many years, just trying to get the patterns down, because if I recognize a pattern, I can survive.
Right.
So, for example, a baby may come to the conclusion, this is pre-verbal, before words. If I cry and make a fuss, I'll get taken care of.
Yeah, right.
And that's a very good belief for a baby to come to.
It's terrible for the mother. Yeah. We get that.
Yeah, but the baby's after their own survival. Mom has to take care of herself.
But for many years, there was a phenomenon of women throwing their children out the window. I mean, I could fully relate.
Indeed.
For my own survival. So
the problem, and you actually said the problem, which is that's an old belief that should have had an expiration date, like meat powder. This belief will expire in 5 years or before, if you can talk and and ask for your needs to be met, right? But it doesn't. It gets pushed down into the subconscious mind by other beliefs, other knowings, and other learnings.
Well, wait, now let's. I mean, we have an international audience here, and not everyone is conversant with some of these concepts. So when we talk about the subconscious, what are we really talking about?
Well, the standard picture is an iceberg, right? So the little bit of the iceberg that's sticking up above the water is our conscious mind. It's a very tiny slice of what's happening in our nervous system.
In other words, we're aware of what's happening.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not aware of what's happening. Everything outside our current awareness is sub or below the conscious mind.
Okay.
So the subconscious is very deep, and it includes everything that we know. And then, of course, Carl Jung talked about the collective unconscious, which is everything that everyone has ever known, the myths and the stories of ancient times that are also part of our consciousness. So these are really arbitrary distinctions. What's subconscious? Well, my right foot is in my subconscious at the moment until I put my attention on it.
And you mentioned before we started recording, you mentioned a friend of yours who had created a deck of cards, an oracle deck, and she worked with archetypes. And Carl Jung, with the idea of the collective unconscious, that is the collective unconscious. Archetypes also are swim in that ocean there.
Absolutely.
But when, I hate to interrupt you every now and then, but I think I'm starting, when you say using the conscious mind, okay, you're talking to someone, I'm just asking you questions, but I see that written, for example, on your website. All right, that's a service you use. Let's say that's a service that you offer a client who comes to you, or a group, however you work with them. And they say, okay, I want to use my subconscious mind to change my beliefs and change my life because I'm a mess. All right, I'm a mess. I know all I can think about is bills. All I can think about I'm anxiety ridden. All I can think, I can't even have sex anymore. I need help. They come to you. And what is your first, do you work one-on-one?
I do.
Okay, so how does that work? I don't want you to tell me everything, but just the process. What would you first do with me?
The principle that I use is that everything in our consciousness has a cause.
Yes.
And the ultimate cause are the beliefs and conclusions and patterns that we came to earlier in our life that we're now using to survive. Okay. So an adult comes to me and says, I'm having a problem with my relationship.
Okay.
And I ask about it like any good therapist would.
Yeah.
And the answer is he just won't pay attention to me. And I make a big fuss to get his attention.
Yeah.
Well, there's the earliest belief. I have to cry and make a fuss to get attention.
Sure.
And so I'm looking into the subconscious to find out where that began.
Okay.
Where was the conclusion? Because we could come to any conclusion, right? One child who's not cared for might say, I need to be quiet in order to survive and get my needs met. So that person might come to me and say, I can't speak my mind.
Okay.
Well, they came to a different conclusion in infancy. And so my work is to listen to whatever the pattern is at the surface, what's happening in your life, and then asking you questions that lead down to the root cause, which are the beliefs that you came to or were indoctrinated with early in your life, and then work with those. Because if we can clear those out of the way, then that's no longer the pattern. The whole pattern disappears. And now you have space and openness where there was a fixed pattern.
Right. Okay.
In that space, you can create anything new.
So you several times, I think at least 7 times so far, you use the word survival. And when a client comes to you today, most of the people who are looking for services of this kind are able to do so because they dispose of a way to pay you. I'll just put it that way. And so they're not looking for survival, mere survival, because they have food they can eat. What they're looking for is something maybe akin to happiness, or I mean, that is a different type of survival, perhaps, but it's not raw survival like a child who cries. So when you talk of the conscious mind the subconscious mind in this case, do you work at any level with their dream patterns?
I find dreams very interesting, but I'm not an expert in them.
Right. Yeah.
So I use whatever information they bring.
Oh, they give you. Right. Good.
And I'm an inquirer, right? So I ask them to tell me what's going on, and then I guide them into their own subconscious mind. I don't go diving into their mind. I simply evoke from them
Yeah.
what's going on inside of them. And
Uh-huh.
if a dream came up, we look at the dream as an
Right.
archetypal expression of
Right.
some part of their consciousness. Consciousness is very complicated.
Oh God. Yeah. So, amen. Yeah, we
It's
know that.
right. And psychology is just one part of consciousness,
Right.
and spirituality is another part of consciousness.
Right.
Our body is another part of
Right.
consciousness.
Right. Right.
So consciousness is expressing itself in that person's life in
Yeah.
whatever way it does.
I went, this just made me think when I was doing my PhD, I went to a supervisor and I was saying, and I come from a social linguistics background. Um, and I said, I've been thinking to study this topic, and I really love to study, and I love, seeking things out. And he said, look, why don't you study consciousness? That'll take you until you die.
Nice. Nice advice. That's really
Right.
good advice.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. So you're in the process of going towards the end of your life, studying consciousness over and over and over again, because if it's true that every single person is a world amongst themselves, an individual, and everything they bring to you is so unique that even your response to them and interaction with them is unique. Am I right?
Absolutely. Every single individual is a unique being. To me, they're a star, like like a star in the heavens, shining their light. And then that light is occluded by their patterns, their psychology, their ego issues, their frustrations. And so by removing those things that are in the way, then that light gets to shine brighter and brighter and brighter.
Okay, let me ask you a difficult question. You don't have to give me an answer, but I'll ask you anyway. Have you ever had a case with a client that you were unable to work with? It just didn't work.
Yes.
And would you like to share that with us?
Sure. I use a lot of very deep processes.
Yeah.
And one of my clients came to me. He was a product manager at a big firm, and he didn't like processes. In fact, every time I tried using one, he went, "I don't like that stuff. Don't do that with me." He just wanted to sort of report what was going on with him, and I was mostly a listener and an encourager.
Yeah.
He stayed with me for 10 years. And every time I tried one of my tricks, no, it didn't work. And so I didn't know if I was doing any good. Right. Well, 10 years later, he was retiring as a multimillionaire, as a VP of marketing at a big company. So I thought, okay, well, I helped him. I don't know how I helped him. Maybe it was just me listening.
Yeah.
So that's one case in which I didn't get to use any of my smart tricks of consciousness. But just being a good listener was enough for him. I've had other people who had so much resistance to their own consciousness, to their own awareness. They were so stuck in their patterns that they couldn't even see outside them. If you're stuck in blame, like it's all out there, everything is out there. It's very difficult to get somebody to recognize that they are the cause of the matter
and responsible for that. And in the same light, in the same vein, could you tell us about a highly successful story that went beyond your wildest dreams, that you never thought you could have that person reach the heights that they have?
I have a great story about one of my clients who came to me. He was a multimillionaire many times, meaning that he made millions and he lost millions and he made millions and lost millions.
He probably got married 5 times too.
And he was tired of the pattern and he heard about it. So he called me up and so we began looking at the pattern, and I took him back into his childhood as I do. And he suddenly remembered being 3 years old, walking on the streets of New York with his mother.
Yeah.
And he saw a shiny penny.
Ooh. And
he reached down to pick it up, and his mother jerked him back and said, "Don't touch that, it's dirty."
Yeah.
And this realization from that single incident, which he had long forgotten, he put together that he couldn't hold on to money because it was dirty and he shouldn't touch it. And that's why he kept losing his millions. So after that, he didn't have to lose his millions anymore.
Too bad you lost the client. He got Interesting. That's really interesting. Do you work with groups?
No, I don't. I
Hmm.
teach groups. I
You teach
teach
groups,
my
yeah.
technology to
Hmm.
groups of people in my Clear Beliefs coach training. And I
Hmm.
teach this methodology, which is very impactful, very effective.
Hmm.
And most coaches are taught that they are supposed to work with the present and the future
Yeah.
and leave the past to
Mm.
psychotherapists,
Ah,
psychiatrists.
right,
I'd say no, you can't move forward in life
right.
unless you clean up the past, because what
Yeah,
stops people more often than anything
yeah,
is something from their past, a
sure,
belief, a
sure.
self image, I can't do that. So
Hmm.
we clear those out of the way, and suddenly the person is fully capable of
Yeah,
creating their own
yeah.
future.
Let's talk a little bit about the books that you've written. Which can you?
Sure.
Because you've co-authored, you've written 5 books, right? Um, and uh, I might have made a mistake in presenting them. Maybe you could. They were probably a list, but can you give me the titles from the
Sure.
earliest, if you remember? Sorry about that.
Well, my first published book that was successful was called Creating on Purpose: The
Ah,
Spiritual Technology of Manifesting Through the Chakras.
uh-huh. Nice.
And
That's
I wrote
interesting.
that book. I co-authored that book with Anadea Judith, who's a famous author about the chakras.
When
And
is
we,
that? When was that? What year? Do you remember?
uh, 2011, I think.
Okay. Okay.
And we looked at the process of manifestation because I had been looking at it through the belief lens. It's like,
Yeah.
what beliefs do we need to create what we want? And she had been looking at it through the chakra lens,
Yeah.
which is the downward current through the chakras. Most people think of the chakras as an upward current, becoming more and more open,
Yeah.
more and more
Yeah.
enlightened until
Mm-hmm.
you have a big woo-ha experience of
Mm-hmm.
enlightenment. But the ancient texts do talk about a downward current, which
Yeah.
is the current of manifestation. They call it mukti and bhukti.
Mm-hmm.
Bhukti is downward current, and that
Yeah.
means pleasure. And
Yes.
I know you've written about pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have what you want, you experience pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And so the havingness function comes from this downward current
Yeah.
of taking an idea and bringing it into
Mm-hmm.
reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a step-by-step book that takes you through that journey from idea
And
to actuality.
this is the first 2011. This is possible to be found in Amazon.com and
Yes,
Amazon anywhere.
available on
So
Amazon.
Lion Goodman, Amazon. What's the next book? Just to get,
The next book was Menlightenment. This is an
Oh,
ebook that's
Menlightenment.
available.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes. Mm-hmm.
it's an ebook available on my website. And basically, I had been doing men's work for 20 years
And
and
what do
realized
you
that
mean men's work?
uh, so
Only working with men? Or cleaning the
women,
bathroom and
yeah,
what's men's work?
good question. No one's ever asked
Mechanic?
that before.
I don't get it.
Well, women got together in women's groups in the
Yeah.
early days of feminism, and
Yeah.
men started feeling left out, and so they
Oh,
got together in men's groups,
and what did
and
they do there?
they go deep into their own psyche and they do inner work. Now,
Oh,
some men's
that
groups
kind
are
of
about
work. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Now,
Okay.
there's different kinds of men's groups. Some do
Okay.
service work. They go out and build
Okay.
a house for
Okay.
that group.
Okay.
But
Okay.
my men's groups always went deep and said, "What's
Okay.
going on?" Because
Right.
we had a lot of sophisticated men who got together regularly
Uh-huh.
and helped each other with this deep processing, getting things
Oh,
away.
sounds
What
like
work,
what
money,
mm,
relationship.
sounds
Yeah.
like something that would happen in sort of a Turkish bath or something. I get the impression as you speak.
Well,
Um,
tribal men have been gathering together in men's houses for a
yeah,
long time or gathering
yeah,
around a fire.
sure.
So it's an ancient tradition.
So you've been doing a lot of men's work for many years, and
Yeah.
then you wrote this book.
Yeah. Enlightenment is really a workbook for men who want to become a better man. It's
Oh,
here's 25 ways that you can become a better man, have a more
ladies, go
successful life.
get the book.
Yes.
Give it.
And
Christmas is coming up.
I have a very specific recommendation for ladies
Yes,
about this book.
yes.
Don't hand the book, do not hand the book to your man and say you need this. That
No,
will not work.
no,
Leave it on the
on the
counter
table.
somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Leave it on the
Let
table.
them
And when he
discover it.
says, "What's this?" then you say, "Oh, I don't know. It's just something I picked up,"
Yeah, right.
and walk away. Do
And
not
walk away.
engage. Because if you start telling him he needs this, he's not going to read it.
You're not going to read it. Okay, this is very valuable information you got here, Lion. I mean, all right. So now we're on the second book, and what year was this? Do you remember?
I have no idea.
Okay, no problem. Next, what do you got next?
This was Clear Your Beliefs. And
Clear Your Beliefs.
This is where I took everything I knew about beliefs and put it into an ebook. Again, it's available at clearyourbeliefs.com.
Okay.
It's really a
wait a minute. No, I have clearbeliefs.com. Is it Clear Your Beliefs or Clear Beliefs?
Two different websites.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Clear Your Beliefs is for people who want to do it themselves. We realized that
for the book
in the program really needs a coach. So we now offer it as a coaching program.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Where you look into your beliefs that are in your way and you get cleared out one by one.
So, and this is 3. Now we're going to the 4th, right?
Yeah. Clear your clients' limiting beliefs.
Ah, that's right.
This is the one for therapists, healers, and coaches.
Okay. Okay.
Introducing the training program, why we do what we do, how we do it. And so that's really a lead in to my Clear Beliefs coach training.
Okay. Then we've got Transforming Trauma.
Yes, this is a collective book. Many books are written with lots of authors. So I was one of many authors focused on trauma. And what I do is heal trauma because traumas create beliefs often. We come to certain conclusions from them. And those conclusions can get in our way later. So we often find trauma at the core of the problematic things that are happening to people now.
Well, wait a minute now. There's something here that you suggested or as a question. What is the imaginal realm and how do you use it in your work? And how can our listeners work with it at home? The imaginal realm is the first. You don't see that word imaginal very often. What do you mean here?
Well, it's a word that was developed by a anthropologist who recognized that all peoples have their physical bodies and their physical work, and they also have this other body in which dreams occur and where we plan and think about the future. And he coined the term to distinguish it from imaginary. Imaginary is just something you make up in your head, but imaginary is that collective unconscious that Jung talked.
Yeah.
It's the place where we can go and see deep patterns that are in the psyche or in the general psyche.
Interesting you mentioned this. I was writing my book and someone was proofreading it and they said, this visualization you write about, you have to be careful because not everyone knows how to visualize, and to me, it's just an obvious everybody does that in my mind. And, and it's obviously not true. It's interesting.
Well, we use a lot of visualization in our work.
Yeah.
And I was concerned that the work we do might not work for non-visualizers because about 20% of the population has little or no ability to visualize.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we can adjust all of our techniques to whatever the primary perception ability is of that person. So they may be kinesthetic. So we take them through the same processes, but using their body feelings. Or some people are.
I see. How do you feel? Yeah.
Right. And I recently, one of my graduates came back and said, I just took a woman who was blind from birth through this process. I said, how did it work? I was fascinated. She said, well, she's a very functional person. She knows where everything is in her apartment. She can walk over and pick up a knife that she left on the counter 2 days ago. And so she just used that perceptual ability of knowing where everything was to do the process. I thought that's pretty cool that a process can use with someone blind from birth. So all of our processes can be adjusted.
Yeah, the way people feel. Because if I say to someone, imagine you're on a beach and you see this, and that, as compared to imagine the color blue. What does that color make you feel? There are two different processes, and it's easier, I found, with the color blue, that feeling, instead of having someone abstractly imagine. This is interesting. Well, boy, where do I go? You don't have any more books, so I can't ask you about that. Let's see. Okay. one last one. I'll give you one last. Are you ready? One last question.
Sure.
What is a core belief? This has come up in different domains. Core beliefs. Everybody talks about core beliefs as if we know what they are. So, what is a core belief?
First of all, our beliefs come in clusters. So, for example, a person may have a bunch of beliefs that all reinforce each other. I'm no good. Nobody likes me. There's something wrong with me. I'm not welcome here.
Right.
And so we have to take those clusters apart piece by piece in order to clear them. The core beliefs are the ones that we build our whole lives on. And they're often about the self. So there's something wrong with me.
Yes.
That's the core belief. When we ask, in fact, I invite you to do this because this is one of my favorite examples. So if you close your eyes and you feel what it feels like to hold the belief, there's something wrong with me, you can try the belief on and feel it in your body. You can actually feel that sensation.
I don't think it's going to work.
That's all right. I know you're too advanced, but your audience can try.
Yeah,
this.
right.
and you actually have a feeling in your body.
Yeah.
And then you can take that feeling off from the belief and try on the belief, I am a sacred and worthy being.
Sure.
And when you try that on, you have a different feeling. So this shows that beliefs create feelings. Well, beliefs also create our personality. So the core beliefs are the beliefs that we built our personality around. Based on things that happened to us, conclusions we came to, things our parents said to us. Those are the core beliefs that sort of run you from that point forward.
Well, everything comes to an end, even the good things. So I'm going to have to say goodbye. And thank you so much for taking the time with all of the work you do, to having taken the time to come and talk to us. It was so interesting, Lion. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I hope to have you back sometime.
Happy to come back.
That would be possible. Maybe another book. If the occasion comes up, there's another book, knock on my door. I'll have you back. That would be wonderful. Bye-bye, Lion.